Welcome to The Range Brief with Blackwing. We are your hosts, Jed McLean and Mark Bohr. Jed, what are we talking about today?
Mark, today we're going to cover Ohio hunting, how to obtain a license, and the wonderful game options that are out there for us to pursue in the state.
Awesome. So Jed is our resident hunting expert at Blackwing. Jed, give us, what you do at Blackwing, and then what is your experience with hunting?
So I'm the buyer at Blackwing Shooting Center. I've been with the shop now for 8 years, and I have spent many wonderful years and a lot of time of my life that my wife will testify to as well, hunting and pursuing game in the state of Ohio.
Awesome. Yeah. And what game do you typically hunt? What's your jam?
Deer and pheasant are my jam. Those are the two that really get me going. We do a little bit of squirrel hunting, a little bit of rabbit, but the deer and the pheasants, man, that's for me, that's where it's at. But you got a little experience hunting as well, don't you?
Yeah, so similar deer and some pheasant, mostly deer hunting, but not near to the level. I'm kind of, maybe gone hunting 20 times, and Jed goes hunting 20 times in a month, kind of thing. So
it's not far off.
So that's kind of the difference. And Jed's experience is quite a bit further here, but I've done that as well as some other, a little bit of waterfowl, quite a bit of pest hunting. Every week it seems like there's a new animal trying to tear into my house. So raccoons, squirrels.
I feel like we could make a horror movie from the pests you've had to defend your homestead from.
Bats recently. I don't think there's a bat season, but I have had to take care of a couple of those. Shotgun in the house works great. Okay, so in Ohio, that's kind of where we're going to focus here, just because it's fairly state specific, and we're going to talk about for the average person, for someone who hasn't hunted before. So a lot of people get into hunting as a mentored sport. They have someone, a family member or a friend or someone they know who's going to take them hunting and show them the ropes. And that's a great thing about hunters, is hunters are happy to teach other people and get other people into the sport. But some people don't have that, or some people want to learn it on their own. So if you want to go hunting, we're going to talk about what does that look like? What does a hunt look like? We're going to focus kind of on deer and then upland bird like pheasant, dove, grouse, that kind of thing. A lot of other hunting you can do: squirrels, ducks, a lot of waterfowl hunting, turkey, a lot of other topics. We just don't have the time to hit them all. So we're kind of picking the popular ones, and also they happen to be the ones that we are more familiar with. So we're gonna go through those. In Ohio, Jed, what would you say that? What's the most popular hunting?
I would venture to say that deer is by far. Yeah. I mean, that's the one that the out-of-towners know. There's guys in New York and Pennsylvania, North Carolina, the out-of-state hunters, they know us for the deer population and the deer hunting that the state of Ohio offers.
Awesome. Yeah. So, that'll be a big focus for us today, as that's a huge percentage of what our customer base too is. That's a lot of what they go after. So we'll just start with this, Jed. What does a hunt look like for average person that's getting started for their first hunt or their first handful of hunts? What does that look like for a deer hunt?
So for the deer hunter, that first bit is the prep work in the off season, where you're going to be hunting, the location, whether you want to do it from a stand, whether you're going to run a ground blind, pop up blinds, what have you, and kind of setting up that, getting yourself ready for success. Then the typical morning, a lot of it is going to be the early risers, that 4 or 5 a.m. Upstart when the alarm's going off and you throw it across the room, getting that morning coffee going. Yep. Highly recommend. Even to the seasoned veterans, it's always great to have the gear and everything prepped the night before when you're pumped and excited for it, and you've got the time to go through it, versus scrambling at 4:30 in the morning to find your boots or find what you did with your hunting knife.
Sure.
Getting out there early in that morning, hour, 2 hours, 30 minutes before the sunrise, getting situated in your stand or your blind, kind of letting the woods calm back down, working your way in there. and then watching that sunrise, waiting for it to come up and the woods to come to life. I would say a vast majority of hunters that I've had experience and time around will run that first 4 or 5 hours. That's including the hour before they're in, before sunrise. You get shooting light 30 minutes before sunrise. You get shooting light until 30 minutes after sunset. So those guys are going to be in there an hour before that 30-minute window opens. And kind of get nestled in
time,
and then they'll spend 4 or 5 hours in the stand or in the blind, hanging out, a lot of hurry up and wait. And then most of them will roll in for that noon lunch, coming in out of the woods at 10, 10:30, 11, 12, what have you. And they might be out of the woods a couple hours. And then that, early afternoon, 1, 2 o'clock, some of them as late as 3, coming back in for that late evening set. Deer are most active dusk and dawn. You're catching them in the early dawn hours, coming out from their, night on the town, so to speak, and everything they've been out doing, coming in for that quick bite, headed for their beds. And then in the late afternoons, early evenings, you're catching them as they're waking up. They're going for that food and water source or what have you, getting ready to bounce across the traffic and scare everybody half to death for the next few hours in the darkness. So, you get a nice little split, now there are dedicated guys that hunt, especially in the rut. As you get into deer hunting, you are bound to hear about the rut. That's when the woods are wild and hot and heavy, and they're moving at all times of the day.
The deer mating season.
That's when you catch those rascally bucks slipping up and kind of breaking their habits and chasing those does down and not quite paying attention how they normally would.
Sure.
You got an animal that survived 4, 5, 10 years, what have you, in extreme circumstances. That long for an animal to survive in a wild condition like that, they're smart. I mean, they've got patterns. They know what pressure's there. They know when they're getting bothered. So the rut's that great time where you can catch them slipping. And you spend that whole day, nestled up there. But, depending on how far you want to go with it, it never hurts, regardless of how long you're going to be in the stand. Have a bottle or 2 of water with you and a couple snacks. Highly recommend apples. You might entice one in as you're enjoying your morning snack.
So I mean, basically you're sitting in the stand, set up. You're going to be quiet and relatively still. And then as on the way here, you were talking about. You are scanning, looking for movement, as opposed to you're not looking for a deer, you're looking for something moving, because that makes it much easier to see, right, than actually looking for like a deer body.
Yeah, and that's kind of what they're doing themselves. They're not out there looking for Mark Gore in a tree stand with a bow right now. Yeah. What they're looking for is that tree doesn't look quite like it should, or what's that blob kind of moving? And it's the same thing for us. I mean, we're set up like a predator. We are predators. The way our eyes and senses and everything work with it, you're looking for that movement along, and that's the stuff that'll flash. Their natural camo is unbelievable. Yeah, and how well it works. Their biggest weakness is snow, because they stick out like sore thumbs.
Well, still kind of hard to sometimes see.
Yeah, especially hardwood lines, big brush lines. It's crazy that a creature that you're looking at and you're going, it's brown with a little bit of black on it and white on the chest. How hard could it be to see in the woods? It's unreal how well that camouflage works against dead brush or dead trees and fallen leaves when they lay down. Wonderful creatures. I mean, it's amazing how well they are adapted, and you're trying to beat that. You're trying to beat eyesight. You're trying to beat the nose. You're trying to watch your noise. I mean, these guys, the hearing's good. Their ability to smell is unreal. I mean, they can pinpoint you or hit that trail on you and know, hey, there's something here. So a lot of things to consider with it, but I mean, it's a really, really wonderful experience when you realize what you're actually going against and trying to outsmart and outthink and outmaneuver.
Yeah, so don't pee by your stand. If you pee by your stand, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. But yeah, so you're sitting in the stand and you're scanning, looking for movement. Most people are going to have a pair of binoculars. But I mean, if you're looking through a pair of binoculars and you're looking for a deer, it's a lot harder than if you're looking for things that are moving, like Jed was talking about. So you see some movement, and it's 2 or 3 doe come in from the left side. So, you got the doe coming in, you get something within range, you want to be able to take a shot that, you can have a high likelihood of hitting and killing the animal. You take the shot and the deer, it bolts, which happens a lot of the time. If you're using a big caliber, you have a really good hit. You might be lucky and have the deer just flop right over. But if it takes off, you get a good hit, but it takes off. Now what? What do you do?
The first thing, breathe. Let that adrenaline work, because I have hunted now for 20 plus years, and I still get the adrenaline with it.
Yeah.
Not as high as it used to be, but it's still there.
Yeah.
First thing is breathe, relax, take a minute, pay close attention and detail to where that animal was when you took the shot, and where's the last place you saw it. When it goes and you pop that shot, follow it, watch it with your eyes. I'm looking and I'm seeing it, and it looks like it went 40 yards down because I know that spot's marked, and then it jumped that brush pile, and then it went on, and then I saw it go over the hillside. Have an idea of where at that spot at that hillside it went over. And but again, you want to know where you took the shot at too. Those 2 frame of reference points are key for the track to start with it. And then give yourself the time in the stand. Kind of take that mental picture back through your head. Okay, I know I put it on the shoulder, or I know I was aiming for the heart, but I think I might have flinched, or did I flinch? Work yourself through that. Talk yourself through it. Where you hit them depends on how long you essentially should stay back. My go-to is 45 minutes. I make a shot, regardless of whether I think it was dead on the money or if I might have been a hair back and maybe it was a liver, I give them at least 45 minutes. You're trying to avoid getting down and spooking them up too early and getting them bolting and running. It's crazy how strong these animals are and how much they can take and keep going and keep pushing. So, you've given it the hour, you come down, and, the first place you want to go is where you took the shot at. You're looking for the blood. You're looking for hair. What color's the blood if you find it? What's the hair look like? If it's a lot of brown, cool. If it's a lot of white, did I get lower in the belly than I thought I did? Is the blood dark? That might be a liver shot. Or is it pink and frothy? Hey, that looks like a double lung shot. Is there chunks of dark red and splotchy? Hey, am I got a heart, and that might be a piece of it there. That scene's going to tell you a lot. And then from there, it's following that track and trail. Unfortunately, it's not always a Sherwin-Williams red paint can running through the forest that you can follow blind. I've been on my hands and knees before looking through pine needles for a drop of blood. Like, okay, it went this way.
Flashlight's helpful here.
Flashlights are great. Worst case scenario, a dog. There are numerous hunters in the state and services out there that are provided by guys and gals within the state that run track dogs. If you got a good hit, you're confident in it. Sometimes things happen. I've shot deer before that were great shots that it got over by the bank and it packed itself full of mud and it wallered in it, and I've lost the blood trail, and they keep going. Track dogs can be fantastic to find them.
Yeah. A little bit harder to do, maybe a more advanced technique, but so you track the animal, and again, the concern, like Jed was talking about, you want to make sure to wait is it might bolt and go to a different property, or it could bolt and run into you, and that's a big animal, so I like to avoid that. So you found the animal, and if it's still alive, you need to make sure to finish the kill. You have another shot or whatever you need to do. And, once you've tracked it down and it's dead, now we need to figure out how we're going to get it out of here and how to get it to the processor, which is what most people are going to do. So first thing you do, the key thing is to field dress the deer. And that's to get all the guts and the stuff out of it.
The entrails.
So, we're not going to talk about exactly how to do that. Definitely would recommend watching a video before you're out in that situation, just to be a little prepared. But essentially, you're just going to cut down kind of like the midline, like rib line, and then pull out the stomach, the liver, all that stuff. And you need to get that out, or else it spoils the meat. So you want to get all that stuff out of there. And then you're going to haul that off to your vehicle to get it off to a processor who is going to take that animal in and get the meat off of the animal. So, if you got an ATV, if you got to drag it yourself, you call out a buddy to come help you drag it out, something like that. But you get it to your car, and then we've got to check and we've got to process, right? So walk us through that.
Yeah, so you've got your animal, you got it recovered, you got the field dress going. You will want to get your check done. You can do that by calling in. This DNR provides a phone number that you can call in, give them all your information and your tag number, and they'll give you back a number to put onto your tag. Or you can do it online. The online one's a great option because you can always go back to it later, and they'll also send you an email confirmation, which is wonderful to have that the check's gone through.
And you have to have that done before you get on the road or before you get to the check station.
You will want to do that before you start moving that deer out. Yeah. You want to make sure you've got it cleared up. It keeps you whole with the state.
Yeah.
You found it, you recovered it, you field dressed it. If you can, and you got the service, go ahead, punch it in, get it done, and get that number, because you'll need that control number that they're going to give you to give to the processors. The processors won't take an animal that hasn't been checked in.
Okay, great. So and then you take it to the processor, and I guess we skipped over the tagging portion or the check-in portion of that. The reason for that is that the state, or the ODNR, Ohio Department of Natural Resources, tracks the animals, a lot of different animals in Ohio, and the population, and hunting is a way to manage that population size. So if there's too many deer and they're seeing a lot of, vehicle accidents and things like that, and they want to cull that population, they increase the season or increase the limits or things like that is how they do it. So that's why they require you to let them know. So they know, hey, that's one less deer out there, but they're getting, hundreds of these, probably a minute. So you check that deer, and then you take it to the processor, and that's what most people are going to do. And what's that kind of look like, I guess?
Your processing check will vary just a little bit, but the process from the processors that I've used is almost identical. You're going to roll up, you're going to let them know, hey, I'm here with a deer. Depending on the size of the processor, sometimes they'll have a staging area where you'll come in, give them all your info. They'll go through, hey, do you want steaks? Do you want boneless chops? Do you want roast? Do you want it all turned into hamburger? Do you want all summer sausage, or, the famous deer jerky? Some of these guys offer so many services. They're one-stop shop. You drop that thing off, you tell them, hey, turn this entire deer into as many rolls of hot pepper deer cheese as you can, and they'll go to work for you. Some of the guys are going to be a little simpler. They're going to offer hamburger, steaks, and roasts. And it's a preference thing. I know guys that they jerky a whole deer, or they want the back strap and then turn the rest of it to hamburger. Yeah. So it's a lot of preference. Beef fat add is a very, very popular option, because this is a very, very good meat, but it's also a very lean meat. It's not like cooking, 80-20 or even 90-10 hamburger.
Sure.
This stuff is super lean, and it's great, but, adding beef fat to it helps with them. Your steaks aren't going to be the size of what you would expect, a porterhouse or a T-bone or a big ribeye from Texas Roadhouse to be. They're going to be a little smaller, more compact. But the processors will get everything taken care of. Depending on what you're getting, as quick as 2 weeks, as long as a month to get the animal back. But they will have it cut and ready for you. Most of these guys are now vacuum sealing, which is fantastic, especially when it's going in the freezer. And I'd say, 99.9% of these guys are already freezing it for you. Yep. So, they'll send you an email or give you a call or send you a postcard and let you know this thing's ready to rock and roll. You go pay up your balance. They give it to you. It's all ready to rock and roll. It's labeled out. Take it home and start enjoying it.
Awesome. Yeah. And then that's when you got the dream, right? You got good self-harvested, lean, healthy, wild game meat to eat. Kind of for yourself, feed your family, your friends, whatever you want. So
get your frontiersmen on.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we did the deer. Now let's talk about a pheasant hunt. So you want to go shoot pheasant or an upland bird, but we can do pheasant as an example. And we're going to kind of stick with these two as the kind of theme for the episode here. So walk us through a pheasant hunt for someone that's kind of getting going. What's a good way to get into that?
So a fantastic way to get into pheasant hunting to start with is to work with a game preserve. There's several in our area. There's multiple throughout the state. These guys are going to be self-sufficient operations. You're not going to need a hunting license for it. You're going to contact them. They raise their own birds or they supply their own birds for it. They have dedicated fields for this. They work with guys that have dogs. You'll have a dog handler and guide with you on this hunt. And it's a fantastic thing to do with the family or do with your friends. Get a couple guys together or a couple guys and gals from the office. Go set a date, get out there and give this a shot. It's a wonderful, wonderful sport that is providing a great bit of meat. I mean, I'd take pheasant over a chicken in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But you get with that group, you get with these organizations, they're going to set you up. They're going to walk you through everything. They'll give you the instruction. Hey, we allow this, we allow shotguns in 12 and 20. You got to use 7.5 or smaller shot with us. And they'll walk you through all that. They'll get you set up. You're going to be you're going to be walking through these fields in sorghum and corn, depending on how their layups are. You want good sturdy pants. You want a nice pair of walking boots, a nice sturdy jacket that can take some beating from the brush, and then get out and they'll get you set up in the fields.
And what's that look like? So you're out with a guide and a dog, right? And
yeah, so you're gonna get this set up. They're gonna assign you field 1, and field 1 is cut corn and sorghum, and the guide's gonna go through everything with you. You're gonna get a safety brief before. Hey, you two are going to be on my left and right. You two are going to be, directly in front of me. This is your shooting window. Shooter B, this is your window. Shooter C, this is your window. These guys are very, very safety conscious because you've got 2 to 4 up to 8 people in this field with shotguns. Yep. You've got 1 to 2 dogs that are out here in this field working. So safety is paramount, and these guys are excellent with this. And they're going to get you up. You're going to have shooter 1, shooter 2, shooter 3, shooter 4, the guide's going, and then they're going to cut the dogs loose. The most common thing you're going to see is the pointers now. That dog's going to be out there working the field, running up and down, looking for that bird, finding where he's hiding. And when they find him and those dogs stop and lock up on a dime, tail goes stiff, they start pointing, letting the dog handler know, hey, I got one right here. Then from that point, some hunters will run 2 dogs. They'll run a pointer and a flusher. Some guys will just run pointers. Some guys will just run flushers. But once that bird's been pinpointed, usually the guide will get up in there, or if he might be a little off, he might say, hey, shooter 3, come on over here, kick this pile of sorghum, let this bird get up in the air. You got a dog on the ground. You don't want to shoot these birds on the ground. Let them get up in the air. Let them get 10, 15 feet up off the deck where then you don't have to worry about the dog in a line of sight. Get them going, and then it's off to the races. Birds up in the air. A lot of these guys will usually say, hey, shooter 2, it's your bird. Shooter 1, because of the way he's standing, it's coming to you. So pay attention. If he doesn't get it on that first or second shot, when it breaks into your shooting zone, have at it and go. The great thing with the preserves too is these guys are raising and handling their own birds. So going into this field, if there's 4 of you and you bought 4 birds apiece, there's 16 birds in this field that have been set out. You don't know where they are. They could be running up and down the rows. They could have already gone to the trees. So you got an idea of where they are. And then the dogs start working and doing their thing. The other great thing, too, is these guys don't go out and recapture these birds when it's done. So you might buy 16 birds, but there might be 15 because the European shoot on the other side of the field didn't have any luck and everything got. So, I mean, it's fast. It's exciting. Even to go on one, it's worth to go and not hunt and just watch the dogs. I mean, they love this and watching them work, whether it's Brittany's, whether it's German short-haired pointers, these dogs are unbelievable in the training and skill they have. And I mean, they could be running full bore up a corn row, and it's crazy to watch this dog hit on a dime and stop and turn and be like, bird.
Yeah.
And it's like, you gotta be kidding me. I never saw that in my life. I'd walked up and down it 3 times.
Yeah. It's neat. We went about a year ago, a few people from the shop, and similar to how Jed described, there's 4 of us in a line. You had a handler and a dog, and he actually swapped dogs out throughout the day because they'd get tired. It was hot outside and the dogs are working. But yeah, you're walking through a field. They call like pushing a field, and it's just a blast. You flush a pheasant, and then sometimes it's flying across multiple shooters. You each have your own zone, so you might have a couple people actually shooting at it, or maybe everyone shoots at it as it's flying because everyone's missing as it flies across the whole group. But it's a lot of fun, a lot of excitement, and it's a great experience. Okay, so now we've gone through what it looks like to go out on a deer hunt or a pheasant hunt. Let's talk a little bit about hunting licenses. We talked about briefly before, but I'm going to go deer hunting. What do I need hunting license wise?
So the first thing, Mark, that you would need is your resident adult hunting license. This is going to be the license that's going to let you hunt the small game. This is going to get you set and ready to be able to hunt the upland birds. It's going to let you hunt rabbits, squirrels, that kind of stuff. Okay. From there, you're going to need a deer permit from the state as well. So you've got your hunting license, which allows you to hunt, and then the deer permit is what's specifically allowing you to target deer. Ohio will usually offer them in 2 different formats. You'll have antlerless only tags or conservation tags that they've done. They've changed the name a couple times over the years. These tags are usually antlerless only, and they're only good for the early archery season. Usually they end the week of or the week before deer gun. Your either sex permit is going to enable you to hunt antlered or antlerless deer. It's a little more expensive than your straight antlerless permit, but that tag is good throughout the whole spectrum of the season.
Okay, sure. And then on the pheasant hunting side, I know we talked about if you're hunting on a preserve, you don't need the license. But if you're going to hunt on public land pheasant, a little bit harder for a beginner to do because you typically do want a dog, and dogs aren't easy to train, or it's kind of hard to bring out a guide with you on public land. You might be better off just going to preserve. But if you are going to hunt on public land, you're still going to need that hunting license, right?
You will still need the hunting license. That's going to enable you to get after the upland game, your squirrels, your grouse, rabbits, pheasants, fox, raccoon, skunks, that kind of stuff. The sure. Small little guys, we'll say. And the public land hunting bit, Ohio does offer pheasant releases. Unfortunately, the state's not in a position that we have a population that is continually self-sustaining. So they do releases. Those are fast. Normally, when they announce the release, you get everybody and their brother that has a dog that wants to do it out there on these stretches of property.
Just a big heyday.
30 and 40 deep, trying to navigate fields and trying to kill everything that moves.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's talk seasons then. So what does deer season look like for Ohio?
So Ohio's deer season breaks out into archery, gun, and muzzleloader. Archery is your big boy. This is the one that gives you the most time span to be in the woods to get after these guys. Usually starts in late September, rolls into early November. Again, biggest stretch. This is the one that's going to give you the most opportunity to get out, but also have the most changes. As the season changes, their pattern is going to change with it. Ohio gun season is the first Monday following Thanksgiving. At least it has been in every year that I've hunted. I haven't seen them change it. First Monday following Thanksgiving to the following Sunday, that's the big week. That's the Orange Army, as they call it, descends on the state of Ohio, both local and non-resident, and everybody and their brothers getting out there and getting after it. Again, that's only usually 7-day season.
Okay, yeah.
Off and on over the years, Ohio's offered an extended gun, which is usually a weekend, Saturday, Sunday in December. So that gives you an extra chance to get out there with the center fire guns and get another chance to hunt. Get a couple week break coming off the season. You won't get as many hunters in the woods, especially the non-resident population on the extended gun. And then the last gun opportunity the state gives us is muzzleloader, which is usually late December, early January for 3 to 4 days.
Okay, sure. So yeah, archery, a good way to do it to give you lots of opportunity. But the gun season is probably how a lot of people enter the sport, by just because it's at least our audience here, probably a lot of gun people already. So that makes it a lot easier to get in. It's just a tighter window.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk equipment. Let's hit bow first. So on the archery side, what do you typically see, and what do beginners typically run if they're gonna do archery?
Most beginners, I would say, are going to either favor the crossbow or the compound bow. The wonderful thing about the crossbows, they're a buy on Friday, sight in Friday night, hunt with on Saturday kind of option. They're going to handle a lot like a gun. You'll have a cocking sequence to lock them. They'll fire a bolt, aluminum or carbon. And again, you're going to get more of that gun feel behind it. It's going to have a trigger. Most of them are going to have an optic, whether it's a red dot or a fixed 4-power scope. Your compound bow's probably going to follow it if it doesn't have more hunters behind it. Compounds are great. They're lightweight. You're not packing the weight that you are with a crossbow. But the compounds take practice. The longbows and the recurves take practice. The guys that are hunting effectively with those spend the spring, summer, and fall practicing for them.
Sure.
The crossbow's a nice thing. If you keep wax on the string and make sure your arrows and everything and your track's clean on it. Cock that thing in September and a couple test shots to make sure your zero's good. And then off to the tree stand you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the gun side is a little bit different. So in Ohio and some other states, they restrict the cartridges you can use. So you can use shotguns, it's like slugs and shotguns, or you can use straight wall cartridges. You can't use the necked cartridges that a lot of rifle shooters are used to, like a 223 or a 308. Ohio kind of limited that, restricted that just to reduce the over travel of a bullet. So not wanting, given that we're a flatter state, bullets to travel thousands of yards beyond where it's intended to be. So they kind of restrict you to these, I don't know if you call it a lower power cartridge, but something that's not going to travel as far. So most popular, if you're just getting into it, most people are going to buy like a 350 Legend or a 450 Bushmaster, which is a straight wall rifle cartridge that has a good amount of power. But you can do 10 millimeter in a handgun, 45 in a handgun. You can do 45-70 in a rifle. You can do shotgun slugs. Lots of options there for sure. Let's move on to kind of land choices, just so we can kind of hit a few different things here. Let's talk about public versus private land. So give me a run through that we kind of talked about it on the pheasant side, what that looks like. What about on the deer side? So I want to get into hunting. I want to hunt. What does that look like if I have land or have access to land versus if I need to go find land? How do I do that?
Private land is absolutely the way to go, in my opinion, if you have access to it. You can control more factors behind it. How much hunting pressure is there? When you're coming in and out of the land, what tree stands you have set up, what blinds you had to set up, whether you want to run cams, whether you want to bait. So many more options and things that you can control. Public land has its great benefits too. You get larger scopes of land, so you're going to have more opportunities. Essentially, if you hunt Wayne National, which is down in southeast Ohio, which is the big public land that's in the state of Ohio, you're talking hundreds of thousands of acres, which is hundreds of thousands of opportunities to harvest on. But there's downsides to the public land. There's other hunters that you're going to run into. There's four-wheelers that you're going to run into. Part of Wayne National has trails on it. So you might have found a great spot to put your climber up for the day, and you get up on there, and the next thing you know, here come 20 dirt bikes over the hillside as they're making their way through the trails. So, a lot of different things to consider with those. Private land, you can set your stands. You can get a good scout. Who's coming in and out in theory. You kind of get an idea of the population that's around your area, whether they're coming in more in the morning or they tend to only travel through in the late afternoon, evenings.
Sure.
Public land, you can get some of that, but a lot more legwork because you never know, how far someone's willing to walk. Someone could start in Longstreth, Ohio, and end up in the upper side of Nelsonville, 5 miles away.
Sure.
So a lot of other things, but public land is where I grew up in the Southeast is the most common thing that we would we would be on.
Okay.
It's also it's the largest bit that we have to work with.
So yeah, public land, you can just go in. If you look on the ODNR website and you're good to hunt there, you can just go in, right?
Yeah, there's nothing extra that you need from it. There are companies like AEP that have land leases that butt up to them. Mm-hmm. There's a process that you can contact AEP and get permission and a slip from them to be able to go onto that land and go out and hunt. Wayne National Forest in the state of Ohio, if you want to hunt it in the designated areas, you're good to go. You park your vehicle in the designated area or off the roadside where it's not bothering anybody and head on in. Private land, on the other hand, if it's not land that you own, you need written permission. And I can't stress that enough. The state is very big on that. They love to catch people that haven't done their due diligence and don't have that written permission. A handshake isn't enough according to them. You want to make sure you've got that written permission for private land.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about equipment and how that might vary. So I guess first you've got stands and blinds and climbers like Jed talked about. So you've got stands, which are probably typically more like permanent structures you might put up on private land. So it's got a ladder and then a base that's 15 foot up a tree that you will sit on. You've got climbers, which are almost like a portable stand or a way to get up a tree temporarily, which is kind of a good option for public land because you can't really like set a stand out there and leave it. And then you got blinds like ground blinds. So it's just like a little pop-up tent almost that has windows you can shoot out of. And that you could use on public or private. You see that both. Advantages is easy to set up, easy to move around. The downside is you're on the ground level. So versus being up in a tree where you're shooting down. So it gives you more reasonable shots and further distance to shoot. So you got kind of pros and cons there. But what other equipment would you need? So you obviously need that. You need what you're going to use to take the deer, the gun or the bow, and have that set up and ready. But what else, do you really need to get started and getting out there?
A knife, a good hunting knife is an invaluable tool for deer hunting or any hunting for that matter. Field dressing is extremely common. Whether you're hunting turkey, you're hunting pheasants, you're hunting deer, you want to field dress them and get those entrails out and save as much of the meat as you can. So a good knife is absolutely paramount.
And a pocket knife will not do.
Most pocket knives will not do. I'm not saying there aren't exceptions. There's always an exception to the rule. I prefer a nice, strong fixed blade myself. Yep. But there are some great options out there now, folding knives that look like small camping axes. Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of options out there to definitely coax into your flavor of life. Boots, nice, good pair of boots is wonderful, especially if you're going to be hunting the conditions, whether it's raining, it's cold, it's windy. You want something to keep your feet warm. Something to keep your hands warm. Hot hands or the little Zippo portable heaters are fantastic to be able to stick in a coat pocket and not catch the coat on fire. Yeah. A good coat, always great. The archery guys, a good face mask. In the early season, you want one that's lightweight. In the later season, you don't mind one that's a little heavier and thicker that's going to take that wind off your face and keep you warm. I outfit myself with a wonderful beard. That way I'm always prepared for the cold. But the equipment, drag line, a good strong drag line is great.
It's like a rope they use to drag the deer out.
Nice sturdy rope that has a little bit of flex to it, but is strong enough that you get a good grip and get that out. Now four-wheelers and gators and everything else that are out there now, it's a little easier to pack them out, but I still like having a good sturdy rope at least in the car if we need it.
Sure. Yeah. And then a flashlight. We talked about that earlier. That's key for getting in, getting out, tracking a deer, just something you'll need.
Yeah. Flashlight, the headlamps. I would even take it a step further and say a headlamp is the way to go.
That's when you're field dressing a deer and it's dark.
That's
the only way to do it.
Don't have to sit there with a Surefire hanging out of your mouth like a big stogie trying to hold it on line.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So just to kind of catch a couple of things here before we wrap up the episode, let's talk a little bit about kind of etiquette and ethical shots. So you're shooting at a deer, I guess the quick and dirty is you're looking for kind of like the what do you say, like midsection shot. I don't really know how to describe that on an animal.
It's going to be right. You're going to be behind the shoulder, and a little on the low side. I don't want to say you're too low, but I'd lower 2/3 behind that shoulder. You're going for that double lung shot. You're going for that heart shot. Liver shots are effective, but sometimes they take a minute to bleed. So again, it gets back to that. If you think you've gotten a shot on the liver, the deer is going to expire, but it needs time to. So you got to back off that track and let them go at their own pace. But the heart and lungs, that's the Boilermaker system. That's what we're going after.
Yep.
To get that clean, effective kill.
Yeah. Make sure you look at that. Look at Google what an image of a deer's system looks like and where to take that shot, because it's important that you know where to shoot it. You've got your gun dialed in, and you know where your gun's shooting, where your gun's hitting at 50 yards, at 100 yards, at 150 yards, whatever distances you feel like you might shoot at, and that you have a good idea when you're in a stand, kind of what distances, kind of like landmark out some spots so you know what distance the deer is at. So you can have high confidence that you're going to be able to hit the deer in a kill zone area, because no hunter should be taking a shot that is just like a, shot in the dark. Really not even like a 50-50. You don't want to take an ass shot and hit him in the back end. You're going to risk not taking that deer down.
Yeah. Wayne Gretzky said you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely right, but let's not do that in the sense of ethics for the deer. There's some fantastic targets out there from companies like Caldwell that are 1-1 replica size deer targets. And, it's going to have that front half of the deer. It's going to have the head. It's going to have the shoulder. And then the target will have it mapped out to give you an idea. This is the position the heart normally stays in. This is the position of the lungs. And some of those targets will even have, an outline drawing of the lungs and the heart and the liver. Those are a great tool to start with. And then I would highly recommend get some practice with that, get the idea, get it in your mind's eye that when you look at that deer, okay, this is the area that I need to be in for that heart or that double lung shot. And then use some of those targets too that are just the deer, that are more lifelike to the deer's natural pattern and how they lay, that don't have the heart and lung and everything matched out, and shoot some of those a few times and then compare the two. Make sure that you've got that overlay in your mind's eye that is where the heart and lungs are, and that's where I need to concentrate those shots.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then the other big one is, and this is something that we all know as gun owners, but you really got to keep at the front of your mind when you're hunting and when you're setting up your stands or where you're going to be shooting from, is you're responsible for that bullet and where that goes. And same with the arrow, but more importantly, the bullet. So you need to know what your shot line is, what's beyond that. That's the beauty of shooting up and being up in a stand, is you're shooting downwards at a deer. Gives you a lot more likelihood that you're shooting right into the dirt. But you need to be very confident that you need to be 100% confident that your bullet's not going to be going through a house that's 200 yards past the brush line. You need to be very confident of what's behind what you're shooting at, just like in all kinds of shooting. A couple other things too, just kind of to make sure, I think we might not have hit wearing hunter orange. That is important if you are gun hunting and muzzleloader hunting. Yeah.
So anything in the state of Ohio that involves deer and firearms, you need the hunter safety orange. That even goes to the extreme that if you are an archery hunter and you are archery hunting during an Ohio gun or muzzleloader season, you need to be in solid orange, and that or not solid orange, but the hunter orange. You need the hunter orange vest, coat, jacket, or coveralls. And this requirement applies to both public and private lands. If it's Ohio deer season, for a gun or muzzleloader, you need to make sure that you've got that hunter safety orange.
Awesome. And
trust me, 20 plus years of doing this, the deer don't care about the hunter orange.
Yep.
You're not hurting your chances. You're just you're being as safe. We all want to be as safe as we can. I think the goal for every deer hunter is to be able to add another one to the freezer. And if we're lucky enough and we're good and we've done our prep work, add something with a great set of antlers to the wall as well, and have a good story to tell your buddies. But we also want to do it in a safe manner. And that hunter orange, especially with the firearms, it's key. Don't skimp out on that. Make sure you've got a really, really nice, visible hunter orange vest or jacket.
And yeah, there's lots of some like more detailed info about this, so make sure to look at the regulations. For example, I think there's like a square footage requirement or square inch requirement or something. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but that goes with everything. So, like there's deer limits in the state of Ohio. You can only take a certain amount of deer in the state, a certain amount in each county kind of thing. So make sure you look at that, and that does change. And then I think one other thing that we might have skipped through just a little bit is I think we talked about the rut, but maybe not the timing wise of when that is. So that's really just for bow hunters because it's not in gun season. And I guess just like what time of year is that and why is that important?
So this year we were fortunate enough to have a good chunk of the rut during gun season, which, like you said, it's a rarity. Yeah. Usually late October, early November is when we see it, or mid-November. Rut's usually starting to calm down right about the time deer gun season's kicking off. But a lot of factors go into that: the phase of the moon, the average temperature outside, how cold has it been, how hot has it been, are we seeing fluxes, are we getting into Indian summer? So that stuff kind of changes. But usually right around Halloween and before Thanksgiving is usually the time zone of when the rut is going to happen. And the rut is the deer mating season. It's that magical time in the woods where the bucks absolutely lose their minds chasing the does. They forget half of their senses. They let their guard down, and the woods come to life all time of day. I mean, those are the days that you want to be out there from sunrise to sunset with the bow, ready to rock and roll in a good spot. Those are the days you definitely want to remember to bring your snacks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Snacks and water, man.
Absolutely. Well, I think that covers everything that we were planning to hit in this episode. I know there's a lot here. I mean, we skipped everything on tactics. We skipped over a lot of items that, as you get into it, will be helpful. But there's tons and tons of podcast books, all kinds of stuff, articles out there on this kind of thing, and you could spend years, researching how to set cams and feeders and bait deer and track deer and then on the pheasant side, how to train a dog. I mean, that's a lot of work, but very rewarding. There's a lot of information, but our goal here today was just to give you enough to get started and get going if you're less familiar or unfamiliar with hunting. We're always here, happy to help. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. Or go to your local, gun dealer if you plan to go the gun route, or your local archery dealer if you're going to go that route. And they're always will be happy, to help you out and bring you along the way. Appreciate you guys tuning in today. Please do the usual: rate, subscribe, comment, share with your friends. If you've got a friend of yours that's had interest in hunting, and whether you know how to hunt or not, send them the podcast. I'm sure they'd love to hear it and kind of give them a good intro. And feel free to reach out to hunters that if you are wanting to get into it after you've heard this. Like we mentioned earlier, hunters are, just like most people, I think, happy to help and mentor and get you into the sport and give you advice. They're not going to tell you where their secret little honey hole is, but they will help you out in so many ways. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will see you next time.